It's fine today. It's fine today. 口が開かねえねこのアバター。リップシンクしてるんだけどな。じゃあ始めていきます。What is universal? When people speak about universal basic support, whether in the shape of income or services, they usually mean national basic support. ちょっとone moment. 膝と膝と膝とHitherto, all UBI initiatives have been strictly national or municipal. In January 2017, Finland began a two-year experiment, providing 2,000 unemployed Finns with €560 a month, irrespective of whether they find work or not. Similar experiments are underway in the Canadian province of Ontario, in the Italian city of Livorno, and in several Dutch cities. In 2016, Switzerland held a referendum on instituting a national basic income scheme, but voters rejected the idea. The problem with such national and municipal schemes, however, is that the main victims of automation may not live in Finland, Ontario, Livorno, or Amsterdam. Globalization has made people in one country utterly dependent on market in other countries, but automation might unravel large parts of this global trade network with disastrous consequences. Time. Consequences for the weakest links. In the 20th century, developing countries lacking natural resources made economic progress mainly by selling the cheap labor of their unskilled workers. Today, millions of Bangladeshis make a living by producing shirts and selling them to customers in the United States, while people in Bangalore earn the keep in call centers dealing with the complaints of American customers. Yet with the rise of AI, robots and 3D printers, cheap unskilled labor would become far less important. Instead of manufacturing shirts in Dhaka and shipping it all the way to the US. You could buy the shirts, shirts code online from Amazon and print it in New York. The Zara and Prada stores on Fifth Avenue could be replaced by 3D printing centers in Brooklyn. And some people might even have a printer at home. Simultaneously, simultaneously, instead of calling customer services in Bangalore to complain about your printer, you could talk with an AI representative in the Google code, whose accent and tone of voice are tailored to your preferences. The newly unemployed workers and sales center operators in Dhaka and Bangalore don't have the education necessary to switch to designing fashionable shirts or writing computer code. So how will they survive? If AI and 3D printers indeed take over from the Bangladeshis and Bangalians, the revenues that previously flowed to Southeast Asia will now fill the coffers of a few tech giants in California. Instead of economic growth improving conditions all over the world, we must see immense new wealth created in high-tech hubs such as Silicon Valley, while many developing countries collapse. Of course, some emerging economies, including India and Bangladesh, might advance fast enough to join the winning team. Given enough time, the children or grandchildren of textile workers and call center operators might well become the engineers and entrepreneurs who build and own the computers and 3D printers. But the time to make such a transition is running out. In the past, cheap unskilled labor has served as a secure bridge across the global economic divide, and even if a country advanced slowly, it could expect to reach safety eventually. Taking the right steps was more important than making speedy progress. Yet now the bridge yet now the bridge is shaking, and soon it might collapse. Those who have already crossed it, graduating from cheap labor to high-skilled industries, will probably be okay, but those lagging behind might find themselves stuck on the wrong side of the chasm. Without any means of crossing over, what do you do when nobody needs your cheap, unskilled laborers, and you don't have the resources to build a good education system and teach them new skills? What then will be the fate of the strugglers? American voters might conceivably agreed that taxes paid by Amazon and Google for the U.S. business could be used to give stipends or free services to unemployed minors in Pennsylvania and jobless taxi drivers in New York. However, would American voters also agree that these taxes should be sent to support unemployed people in places defined by President Trump as sister countries? Sister countries? If you believe that, you might just as well believe that Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny will solve the problem. ちょっと飲み物取ってきます。What is basic? Universal basic support is meant to take care of basic human needs, but there is no accepted definition for that. Universal basic support is meant to take care of basic human needs, but there is no accepted definition for that. From a purely biological perspective, a sapiens needs just 1,500 to 2,500 calories per day in order to survive. Anything more is a luxury. Yet over and above this biological property lie, every culture in history defined additional needs as basic. In medieval Europe, access to church services was seen as even more important than food, because it took care of your eternal soul rather than of your ephemeral body. In today's Europe, decent education and healthcare services are considered by basic human needs, and some argue that even access to the internet is now essential for every man, woman, and child. If in 2050 the United World Government agrees to tax Google, Amazon, Baidu, and Tencent in order to provide basic support for every human being on Earth, in Dhaka as well as in Detroit, how will it define basic? For example, what does basic education include? Just reading and writing, or also composing computer code and playing the violin? Just just 6 years of primary school, or everything up to a PhD? And what about healthcare? If by 2050 medical advances make it possible to slow down aging processes and significantly extend human lifespans, will the new treatment be available to all all なんだこれ all your all 10 billion humans of the planet, just a few billionaires? If biotechnology enables parents to upgrade their children, would this be considered a basic human need, or would we see humankind splitting into different biological castes, with rich superhumans enjoying abilities that far surpass those of poor Homo sapiens? Whichever way you choose to define basic human needs, once you provide them to everyone free of charge, they will be taken for granted, and their fierce social competitions and political struggles will focus on non-basic luxuries, be they fancy self-driving cars, access to virtual reality parks, or enhanced bioengineered bodies. Yet, if the unemployed masses command no economic assets, it is hard to see how they could ever hope to obtain such luxuries. Consequently, the gap between the rich Tencent managers and Google shareholders and the poor, those dependent on universal basic income, might become not merely bigger, but actually unbridgeable. Hence ってその結果だよね、確かにね。違ったっけ。何回同じことがくれるんだ。このゆえに今後。Hence, even if some universal support scheme provides poor people in 2050 with much better healthcare and education than today, they might still be extremely angry about global inequality and the lack of social mobility. People will feel that the system is rigged against them, that the government services only the super rich, and that the future will be even worse for them and their children. Homo sapiens is just not built for satisfaction. Human happiness depends less on objective conditions and more on our own expectations. Expectations, however, tend to adapt to conditions, including to the condition of other people. When things improve, expectations balloon, and consequently even when things improve, expectation balloon consequently improvements in conditions might leave us as dissatisfied as before. If universal basic support is aimed at improving the objective conditions of the average average person in 2050, it has a fair chance of succeeding. But if it is aimed at making people subjectively more satisfied with their lot and preventing social discontent, it is likely to fail. To really achieve its goals, universal basic support will have to be supplemented by some meaningful pursuit, ranging from sports to religion. Perhaps the most successful experiment so far in how to live a contented life in a post-work world has been conducted in Israel. There, about 50% of ultra-Orthodox Jewish men never work. They dedicate their lives to studying holy scriptures and performing religious rituals. They and their families don't starve, partly because the wives often work, and partly because the government provides them with generous subsidies and free services, making sure that they don't lack the basic necessities of life. That's universal basic support avant letter. Although they are poor and unemployed, in survey after survey, these ultra-Orthodox Jewish men report higher levels of life satisfaction than any other section of Israeli society. This is due to the strength of their community bonds, as well as to the deep meaning they find in studying scriptures and performing rituals. A small room full of Jewish men discussing the Talmud might well generate more joy, engagement, and insight than a huge textile sweet shop full of hardworking factory hands. In global surveys of life satisfactions, Israel is usually somewhere near the top, thanks in part to the contribution of these jobless poor people. Secular Israelis often complain bitterly that the ultra-Orthodox don't contribute enough to society and live off other people's hard work. Secular Israelis also tend to argue that the ultra-Orthodox way of life is unsustainable, especially as ultra-Orthodox families have 7 children on average. Sooner or later, the state will not be able to support too many unemployed people, and the ultra-Orthodox will have to go to work. Yet it might be just the reverse. As robots and AI pushes humans out of the job market, the ultra-Orthodox Jews may come to be seen as the model of the future rather than as a fossil from the past. Not that everyone will become Orthodox Jews and go to the yeshivas to study the Talmud, but in the lives of all people, the quest for meaning and for community might eclipse the quest for job. If we manage to combine a universal economic safety net with strong communities and meaningful pursuit, losing our jobs to the algorithms might actually turn out to be a blessing. Losing control over our lives, however, is a much scarier scenario. かゆい。かゆいかゆい。Notwithstanding the danger of mass unemployment, what we should worry about even more is the shift in authority from humans to algorithms, which might destroy any remaining faith in the liberal story and open the way to the rise of digital dictatorships. はい、チャプター2終わりました。ここまでで6、あれ風持ちで5、風持ちが5だったっけで、合計3、4時間かな、もっとかな。3. Liberty. Big data is watching you. The liberal story cherishes human liberty as its number one value. It argues that all authority ultimately stems from the free will of individual humans, as it is expressed in their feelings, desires, and choices. In politics, liberalism believes that the voter knows best. It therefore upholds democratic elections. In economics, liberalism maintains that the customer is always right. It therefore holds free market principles. In personal matters, liberalism encourages people to listen to themselves, be true to themselves, and follow their hearts, as long as they do not infringe on the liberties of others. This personal freedom is enshrined in human rights. In Western political discourse, the term liberal is sometimes used today in a much narrower partisan sense to denote those who support specific causes like gay marriage, gun control, and abortion. Yet most so-called conservatives also embrace the broad liberal worldview, especially in the United States. Both Republicans and Democrats should occasionally take a break from their heated quarrels to remind themselves that they all agree on fundamentals such as free elections and the independent judiciary and human rights. Test yourself. Do you think people should choose their government rather than blindly obey a king? Do you think people should choose their profession rather than be born into a caste? Caste? Do you think people should choose their spouse rather than marrying whomever their parents select? If you answered yes to all three questions, congratulations, you are liberal. You are liberal. In particular, it is vital to remember that even conservative heroes such as Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were great champions not only of economic freedoms but also of individual liberties. In a famous interview in 1987, Thatcher said that there is no such thing as society. There is a living tapestry of men and women, and the quality of our lives will depend upon how much each of us is prepared to take responsibility for ourselves. Such as health in the Conservative Party fully agree with the Labour Party that political authority comes from the feelings, choices, and free will of individual voters. Choose when Britain needed to decide whether it should leave the EU. Prime Minister David Cameron didn't ask Queen Elizabeth to. The Archbishop of Canterbury or the Oxford and Cambridge don't resolve the issue. He didn't even ask the members of parliament. Later, he held a referendum in which each and every Briton was asked, "What do you feel about it?" かゆい。You might object that people were asked, "What do you think?" rather than "What do you feel?" But this is a common misperception. Referendums and elections are always about human feelings, not about human rationality. If democracy were a matter of rational decision making, there would be absolutely no reason to give all people equal voting rights, or perhaps any voting rights. There is ample evidence that some people are far more knowledgeable and rational than others. Certainly, when it comes to specific economic and political questions. In the wake of the Brexit vote, eminent biologist Richard Darwin protested that the vast majority of the British public, including himself, should never have been asked to vote in the referendum because they lacked the necessary background in economics and political science. You might as well call a nationwide plebiscite to decide whether Einstein got his algebra right, but let passengers vote on which runway the pilot should land.まだ36分ですか。おいおい、そんなん傾いてねえぞ俺。大根、そこまで傾いてねえだろ。リップシンクが全然機能してないな。じゃあ今日はここまでで。